Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And on behalf of the Meal TLL, welcome to the Data Quality Standards Meal TLL webinar. Today, we will be going over the data quality standards as promised. However, the presenters have decided that we're going to be doing a two-part series, and we'll be going over the data quality assessment in a different webinar. And we'll be sending out information about that a little bit later. And yes, and Nestor and Fahim will go over the data quality standards today as a foundation before we go to data quality assessments in a different webinar. Now, just a few quick notes. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, the office you're joining from, your job title. This webinar will be held in English. And also, if you have any questions, please go ahead and write them in the chat box. I will be monitoring that and we'll be jotting them down. We'll have a question and answer time at the very end. Again, this webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording out after this and as well as the PowerPoint. So not to worry. So just a really quick overview of the agenda. We're going through our welcome and introduction. We'll have a presentation, and then as promised, we'll have our Q&A and then a few closing remarks. Now, our presenters are Nestor Mogollon, which is the director for Meal at Azure International, and he is also the Meal TLL chair. And we also have with us Fahim Safi, our senior technical advisor for Meal at Azure International, and also a Meal TLL member. Now, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Fahim is going to start sharing his screen. And continue to introduce yourselves in the chat. I see people have started. Thank you so much, Tanaka, for starting us off. Awesome. Good to see everyone here. And yeah, Fahim, we see your screen right now. And Nestor, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, good morning, good evening, everybody. Good to have you here. Today we are going to go through what is data quality concept. So let's start with something. Let's go. The session we are going to do as first we're going to see what is data quality, why data quality matters, means why we are bothered to discuss about data quality, the dimensions or the standard of data quality, and how we can improve the quality of our data. Okay, let's start with something. Let's say that I just want to celebrate my birthday. I want to organize a dinner. So I'm going to ask three of my friends to recommend restaurants. Can you go one before? Can you go one before, Fahim? Yeah, the next one. Yeah, okay, the first one. Don't go up to the beginning. Okay, let's be there. So then I decided to ask three of my friends to give me addresses of good restaurants so I can uh, do the dinner on my birthday. Then I asked different friends, but only three of them responded. Can you continue, Fahim? But these are the answers that I got. The first one I asked, Carlos recommends a restaurant that closed 4 months ago. The second one, my friend Rosa misunderstands my question and recommends a market instead of a restaurant. The third friend, Joseph, forget the name of the restaurant he is recommended. So my question is, and you can write in the chat or open your micro. What is the problem with this data that I receive? Anybody? What was the problem? Can you go back in so that they can see it? Yes, these are the data that I received. What was the problem with the data? You can open your phone, you can speak or write in the chat. Anybody wants to give it a try?
Someone in the chat said no name.
Okay, no names. What else? No names of the restaurant. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's continue to see it. Okay, what is the problem with the data? With this data, can I make the decision to organize my dinner with the data that I receive? Do you think? No. Somebody say no. Why? Why I cannot organize the dinner with this data that I receive? No, because it's incomplete. Somebody said no clear information. Okay, where else? No. Okay, very good. Yes. So then what we can say, we have a quality issue because with the data that I got it, I cannot make my decision. My decision is to organize as simple as a dinner, birthday dinner. So now that is why we are going to deal now with data quality in our projects, in our meal system, and how affect our decisions. Let's continue. Okay, what I want that during this webinar, you think about the following question. For example, how well does your information system function? Are the definition of your indicators clear and understood by at all levels? Does everyone understand the specific reported timelines and why do they need to be followed? Let's continue. Uh, this another question that I want you to, during the webinar, try to think about your own projects if you have those kind of problems. For example, are data collection instruments and reported forms standardized and compatible? Do they have clear instructions? Sometimes we have their formats, but there is no instructions because we think, oh yeah, people can know because this is obvious. For example, are you aware of potential data quality challenges such as missing data, double counting, losses to follow up? How do you address them? What are your policies and procedures for storing and filling data collection instruments? So now let's go to see what is data quality. Let's have in the diagram you see, can you point it out, Fahim? The first one, in the real world. In the real world, you have your project activities that you are implementing in the field. These activities are designed to produce a result that are quantifiable on one hand. In the other hand, you have your data management system or your meal system, which is the information system that the idea is this system mirrored what is happening in the real world. So you have your collecting, you have to collect the results that we're producing and mapping out in the recording system. So when we talk about data quality is how well your system mirrors the real world, meaning mirrored how well you are implemented your activities, your project activities in the field. So that is what we call data quality. You see the arrow here. Wherever you are you in the middle? Are you to the left or to the right? So we can say that is we have data quality. And then, but that what does it mean data quality? If you forget anything, I just want you to remember this graph. You know, real world, your data management system, how your data management system mirror the activities is the quality of your data. Let's continue. So what is data quality? Data quality means that your information that you collect is good enough to be useful for rigorous analysis and decision. Remember the invitation, the information that I got, we can say that that information was not good enough for me to make the decision. That is what we talk about data quality. And also, your data quality means that your information is accurate and reliable, and also that the information that you collected and you are using a process that for capturing, verifying, and analysis, and do the analysis of the data is of a higher standard. That is what we mean by data quality. Okay, let's continue. Then, as I mentioned before, data quality is how well the information system represents the real world, meaning the real world is your activities, your all your results that you want to achieve according to the design of your project. So we have 6 standards for measuring data quality. And even there are other ones that we are not focusing here, like ethics and other things. But what we're going to focus are the most common one, that is validity, reliability, completeness, precision, timeliness, and integrity. Those are the standards that most of the donors use to assess and to measure data quality. Let's continue. Then, as you see, data quality is in the middle of your project cycle, meaning that across all your data, uh, across your project cycle, you are collecting data, and then data quality is in the middle because we use data, not only because we like to collect data, because we use the data for decision making. Okay, let's continue. And why it's important to incorporate standards of quality in the meal plan. First of all, is going to ensure the credibility and reliability of the result that you're reporting. It's going to improve your decision making and any program adjustment that you need based on the data you are collecting. And also you are going to align with the donor standards and expectation. And also it's going to promote, and that is what we want to stress a lot in ADRA network, to promote a culture of accountability and learning. Okay, let's continue. And then when we talk about, we need to establish a data quality standard framework. And when we do that, we need to state the purpose and objective of the data quality standard. And the data quality standard framework purpose basically is to have data that is accurate enough for us to make the decision. I'm not talking about that is data that doesn't have an error. I'm saying that is good enough to make your decision. And we are going to discuss later on why I say that one. We need to outline the timing and frequency of the assessment. And also we need to assign roles and responsibilities. Who is going to be responsible to check the quality of the data and the procedures and all of things that we're going to discuss later on. And also, yes, continue. Okay. The 6 data the dimensions of data quality is validity. And the question is, are you measuring what you are supposed to measure? Whatever is your project. When talk about reliability, the question is, can you collect data of the same quality over the time? If your project is 3 years, 1 year, 6 months, are you collecting the data, the same quality, everybody using the same forms are collected the same quality of the data over the time? Completeness, do you have all the data that you need for an analysis? And in timeliness, do you have up-to-date data when you need it? Let's continue. When talk about precision, is that the data have enough detail to present a fair picture. And integrity, are the data accurate and free of errors? So we are going to go more in detail on the of these on each of these standards later on. Let's continue. And now I'm going to pass to Fahim, that he's going to go one by one with some examples so that you can have a better understanding of what we mean by each of those standards. Fahim.
Thank you, Nestor. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'll continue with the first principle. As Nestor briefly explained, the 6 key standards of data quality. The first one is validity. Now, we mentioned validity is, did we measure what we intended to measure, what we were planning to measure. So when it comes to validity, it's very important to consider some of these questions. And if answer to any of these questions is yes, then we may have a validity issue in our data. For example, did respondents not understand the questions that were asked to them? Now, if we are collecting data and asking specific questions, the answers to these questions, different beneficiaries, if we are collecting that from beneficiaries, may understand the question differently. In that case, if we are not explaining the questions properly, or we are not drafting the questions properly, and our beneficiaries or the respondents may understand that question differently, then there is a validity issue. Data might be incomplete or ineligible, or sometimes the respondents may feel pressure to answer the questions correctly. Or it could be data that's altered in transcription, or usually another major key issues in our data is the sampling frame. We might have a wrong sampling frame. So if our answers to any of these questions is yes, and that exists, we have that in our data, then there might be a validity issue. Now, go to the next slide. So what's validity and why it's important in data? Now, the data collected using a well-defined methodology aligned with the indicator definition. Now, if we are collecting data for an indicator, each indicator has its definition, the way we collect and measure that indicator. So it's important to collect data properly using a well-defined methodology aligned with the indicator definition. The indicator measures what it claims to measure and not unrelated variables. We are measuring what the indicator defines to measure. There might be some other variables related to that indicator which are not applicable, so we may exclude that. So it's very important to measure what it claims to measure. There is a clear link between project activities and reported results. Now, if we are implementing a training, for example, or if we are doing a farmer field school activities or nutrition and health interventions, so it's important. Excuse me. It's important to link those project activities to the results we are producing through that data. If there is an issue, it's a validity issue. What data sources are we using, and if they are appropriate and credible? Whether we use surveys, administrative records, if we are collecting data from our beneficiaries, or whether we use disk review, for example, it's very important we use the proper and credible data source for collecting our data. And if we don't do that, there is a validity issue. Let's consider some of these questions to ensure our data is valid and accurate. Do this data represent what we think it does? And what's the relationship between the activity program and what you are measuring? Again, I mentioned in my previous slide what activities we are implementing, and is there a relationship between the activity and what we are measuring? For example, if we are implementing a school feeding program, for example, and wants to measure students' weight, children's weight, are we using, the result we are receiving for that weight measurement is correct and accurate? So there has to be a relationship between both of these to ensure the data is accurate. Let's consider this example. It's an indicator that we are trying to measure, which is 60% of the target farmers have been trained in improved agriculture techniques. What does this indicator mean, and why accuracy and validity important in this example? When we say 60%, we are aiming in measuring 60%, not 55% or nor 80%. So we are measuring the target, which is 60%. When it comes to targeted farmers, are we collecting data from the targeted farmers or not? When we are doing the sample size, did we include the targeted farmers? There might be other farmers in the communities who are not our project beneficiaries. Did we include them or not? If we have included those farmers who are not our project beneficiaries in our sample size, then there is an issue. There is a validity issue. So it's very important to collect data from your sample size, the sample, or include your beneficiaries in your sample size. Actually, the second one is actually completed. Now, in our indicator, we say have been trained. Now, did we train these farmers that we're collecting data from? Because sometimes you invite beneficiaries to a program and they may not have been trained, or you intend to provide support to a number of beneficiaries, but they may not have received that support. So it's very important to target those beneficiaries or those participants in your survey who have actually received support from the program. And the last part is the improved agriculture techniques. Now, the indicator says improved agriculture techniques. Did we train these farmers on improved agriculture techniques? There might be different types of interventions and activities we provide to these farmers, but for this indicator, we are targeting those who have received training in improved agriculture techniques, not any other subject. So it's very important to include the correct number of our correct farmers who have received the correct intervention packages. Next standard is reliability. For reliability, in our summary slide on data standards, Nestor mentioned, did we collect the data correctly over time? So it's very important that our data is reliable when we collect that or analyze it. So let's consider some of these questions again for reliability. Have different tools been used to collect data? Sometimes different enumerators may use different data collection tools. And if your answer to that question is yes, then there is a reliability issue. Again, is there inconsistent recording of information by different staff depending on skills level? Enumerators may have different skills level, and they may understand data collection tools differently. So is there an inconsistency in recording that information? And again, if our answer is yes to that question, then there is a reliability issue in our data. And do people not inform the organization if their data are wrong or missing? And it's a very common issue in data. There could be missing data when we collect it in the field due to various reasons, or there could be some wrong information recorded. And if we find those it's possible, it's common, as I said, and if we find these types of errors or issues, it's very important to inform the person who is responsible for verifying data or checking the quality of data. So if we don't do that, there is a reliability issue. Now, what's reliability specifically and why it's important? Reliability ensures data collection methods produce consistent and stable results over time, regardless of who collects the data. Now, that's very key here, regardless of who collects that data. We use tools collected by different enumerators in different times. So it's very critical that the tools we use, the data collection methods we use are consistent and produce the same results over time. Whether we do it in the first year of our program or second year or third year or even first or second quarter, it produces the same results, same quality of. If we don't do that, there is an issue with our data. And if different people collect the same type of data under similar conditions, they should obtain similar results when analyzing the data. Some of the key aspects of reliability as a key standard in data is that data is collected using standardized tools and methodologies, well-defined standardized tools and methodologies. Each indicator, whether we collect that for indicators or a survey, we do have a purpose, a tool, and methodology that has to be implemented. So it's very important to use that, preset standardized tools and methodologies to collect data. There is a minimal bias in data collection and reporting. Now, bias, we may not be able to fully avoid bias, but it has to be very, very minimal when it comes to data collection, analysis, and reporting. So if we fail to avoid bias, or if our data has bias, it's a reliability issue. Staff conducting or enumerators conducting data collections are well trained and follow the same procedures. Now, again, you have different qualifications in data in data enumerators or people who are collecting data. So they have to be well trained in how and to follow the same procedures. And data collection is replicable across different time periods and locations. Now, timeline is Nestor mentioned earlier, is very important. When we collect data in the field in different time and in a different locations, it has to be the same standards and procedures that we follow in order to ensure the data is reliable. Now, the transparency is very important in data reliability. Why? Because data processes, or I'd say data journey, has different steps, including data collection, cleaning, analysis, and reporting. So it's very important that we follow a standard procedures and processes when it comes to these different steps of data. And these procedures have to be documented in writing. And why it's important, because no matter who collects the data, you may not have the same enumerators from time to time. 1 year you may have one group of people who collect data. The second year may have different enumerators, but it's very important to follow the same procedures. So these procedures have to be well documented so everyone follows the same ones. Data problems at each level are reported to next level. Now, it's very common when it comes to issues at these different steps of data. Whether you are doing data collection, cleaning, or analysis, you might find issues. So it's very important to document them and report them to the next level. You may find issues at the data collection level. So when we go into the cleaning part or analysis part, it's important to report those issues to the person who is cleaning and analyzing the data, so they understand those key issues and try to mitigate those issues if it's possible, or completely avoid them at the data collection step. And data quality problems are clear, described in reports. Even if we do a complete analysis of our data and produce a report, we may find issues. So it's important to mention them. Every data has limitations. Every data collection, analysis, and cleaning has issues, may have some issues. So it's important to document them and be transparent in our processes in handling project data. Here's a brief example of poor reliability in data. Just consider this example. A nutrition project measures child malnutrition rates using different weighing scales at each clinic, leading to inconsistent weight readings. Now, this could happen in our data. You are measuring child's malnutrition, and if you are using different weighing scales at different clinics, or I earlier mentioned school feeding. We do that in our school feedings. And if our enumerators use different weighing scales to track and collect children weights, then there's an inconsistency in that reading, and we may produce different results comparing to each scales. So, so there is a poor reliability. It's an issue in the process like standardization, and the data could have a major issue. Just to summarize, good data, the difference between validity and reliability when it comes to data. We want to summarize these three graphs. If you look at the first graph here, these X here are data points. And in looking at this target area here that is highlighted in red, this is the true value, value that we are trying to achieve through the collection of our data. So this graph is neither valid nor reliable. Why? Because the data points here are spread all over here. They're not consistent. The data does not represent the true value. And the data is inaccurate also because the results are very widely. They are not in center true value around the true value. So the data is both invalid and unreliable. Now, if you look at the second one, the data is reliable. Why? Because if it's consistent across one data area. If you look here, it's consistent to one, but it's not around the true value where it has to be. The results may be correct, but not around the true. It's not around the true value. So it's not valid data. When it comes to the third graph, both it's valid and reliable because it's not separate. I don't see any outliers or missing data, and it's around the true value. It measures what it intended to measure. For the earlier example of farmers, 60% of the farmers, we collect data from the same farmers. It is measuring the improved agriculture practices, and it's around that true value. So in this example, the data is both valid and reliable. All right, completeness is a Nestor, over to you, Ben. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fahim. Another standard that we have for data quality is the completeness. And the question here is that the data for all the sites that we are supposed to be measured are included in our report when we aggregate the data. If not, which sites are missing? Do we know? For example, let's say that we are implemented a project in 4 or 5 communities, and then when we are doing our quarterly or our annual report, we have data only for 2 of those communities. So then we have a problem of completeness. Then what step we have to take it to ensure completeness of the data? Let's continue. Let's continue. Okay, the other standard, and for completeness, in summary, completeness is that to be sure that all the communities, individuals, or whoever is our target audience for the indicators, we need to ensure that are included when we are measuring. Otherwise, we have the problem of completeness. We talk about precision. We have some of the questions that are on the screen. And precision is more related with the margin of error that we can absorb. And some of the questions that we can ask ourselves about precision of our data is, for example, if the margin of error larger than the change being measured, how that the target being set up for the margin of error? And you know that basically the standard is, for example, for baseline and line is 95% and 5% error. But if you're doing, for example, like PDM, post distribution monitoring survey, you can use 90 and 10% of error because they are those kind of surveys are doing more frequently, whereas baseline and inline that just doing one time. And also, is one of the question is, had the margin of error been reported? So if some of the question here, the answer is yes, then we can have a problem of validity. Let's continue. So when you talk about sort of, I say no validity, but precision, that's what we're talking about. So if when the data is precise, the data is precise if have an acceptable margin of error. As I mentioned before, for example, you are doing a baseline or an inline survey, the standard is 95% and 5% margin of error. So if we have a margin of error higher than that, then we have a problem that our data is not very precise. And then you already know, most of you have already done surveys, the margin of error is the measurement of the data uncertainty or our level of confidence in the data. I mean, how confident we are in the data. And the margin of error, it will depend of the indicator that we are collecting. And the larger the margin of error, the less confident we should have the data reported and close to the true figures. Okay? So you know that the margin of error is just is the standard to see how are we approaching to show the true figures. Okay, let's continue. And some of the question again that we measured, it's how the margin of error being addressed. I mean, if we have that problem, we need to mention because sometimes we want to show you the result, but we don't show even the margin of error. And most of the time, we are required even in the graph that we are showing to include the margin of error also there. And also an example of poor precision, for example, a program reports total beneficiaries reached without breaking it down by age, gender, or region. So the lack of disaggregation limit the ability to assess the impact or the effect that the program have on different target groups. Okay, let's continue. Timeliness, and that is some of the standard I can say that most of the time we have problems because we have data that arrive when we don't need it. We are doing a quarterly report and the data arrive 1 week or 2 weeks after the deadline. So some of the questions that you see on the screen, if we say yes to that one, so then we have an issue of timeliness. For example, are the data so old when reported that they have lost much of their relevance and value? So let's say what we are going to do if we had problems of timeliness. Let's continue. For data to be considered that is timely, so we need to ensure that the data is being collected according to the frequency that we have established in our meal plan. So in our meal plan, we mention which each indicator in which frequency we're going to collect it. If we're going to collect on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, annually, or only baseline, inline. So if my data is not in that frequency, then it's not current. So I got a problem. So, and again, we mentioned the question is, do we have a regular schedule of data collection in place to meet? So we need to have a schedule so that everybody comply with that schedule. I have seen in many programs that we do have a schedule, but the problem is that people don't comply with with the deadlines, and that is the problem. So the idea is you have a data schedule, but also you have to comply with the data. Okay. If the date for collection is already there, then an example of poor timeliness, for example, here, let's say that we have this nutrition survey, and then we have delays on reporting, and then we have the data comes after 6 months, making the final data and less useful. And we have a problem here. Just to give an example, in DRC, we have done a baseline is last year, and until now we don't have the results that the consultant have done because of the problem that we have with USAID. So that's the problem of timeliness. Let's continue because well, the last of the standard is integrity. And basically, when you talk about integrity of the data, is that you have in place uh, safeguards and procedures that protect the manipulation of your data. You know, and one of the questions that I want to highlight here, do you know the strength and the weaknesses of any secondary data? Because sometimes we use secondary data also. Let's continue for the sake of time. How we can approach, how we can improve the integrity. Basically, what to comply with this standard of integrity, we need to ensure there is no manipulation or bias in our data. Sometimes people, and I always say 1,000 can be changing into 100,000 or 10,000, So we need to have procedures to protect our data to be manipulated in that way. Okay, it could be sometimes people can make mistakes, but sometimes on purpose can manipulate, and that is what we need to be careful about integrity and our data. Some of the integrity questions that are, for example, are there risks the data being manipulated for personal or political reasons? And what system do you have to minimize such risks? We always have to have password so that we protect our data set with password, and also people that have access to data have to have their laptops protected with password. And also we can have another problem with interview bias. Sometimes people present a distortion in the response of the question because of the personality of the interviewer or the interviewee. So that's all other things that also we need to protect on that one. Let's continue. Yeah, here in the screen you can see an example of poor integrity. For example, a project collecting attendance records of a training session inflates the number to meet donor targets, even though only half of the participants actually attended. This compromised the integrity of the data. Okay, that happened in another organization, not another. Huh? Let's go for a quiz right now. Okay, and to see how much you understood of this quality standard. Hey, Kerry, my quiz time now. Okay.
Yes, I have just launched a quiz that should have popped up on your screen. There are 5 questions, so go ahead and we'll take about 1 or 2 minutes for you all to answer them. And we'll see how you guys do.
Does everybody have seen the quiz?
We see it.
Okay. So yes, answer then so we can see.
We'll take about 1 more minute for y'all to answer those questions. I'm seeing a number of answers coming in. This is great. Let's see if we can get 4 more people to submit their answers. Okay, 3 more people. Okay, I will be closing it in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and I'm going to end the quiz now. Okay, let's share the results. So the first question, which data quality standard is primarily concerned with whether the data accurately reflects the activity results? And the correct answer was validity. And then the second one was a health clinic staff member manipulates the number of 15 antenatal visits to 25 visits in the database system because they are below their quarterly target. This scenario most directly violates which data quality standard? And the answer was integrity. Deciding whether the margin of error is acceptable for program decision making is related to which data quality standard? And that was precision. And the fourth question, an annual report uses data from 2 years ago instead of data from that year. This situation primarily concerns which data quality standard? And the answer was timeliness. And then the last one, we kind of had some questions all over the place. Or sorry, some answers all over the place, but the correct answer for this one was low validity, high reliability. And when we send out the presentation, again, you guys will be able to see that picture that Fahim shared. So thank you everyone for participating. And then we will continue with the presentation.
All right, thank you, Kerry. We have a tiny issue, but let's see what we can do. The next part that I want to present is the data management cycle and how data management cycle can affect the quality of the data. And as you can see in the screen, we have 5 steps: data source, data collection, collation or aggregation, and data analysis, and data reporting and use. I'm going to summarize because I don't want to take more of the time. Let's continue to see how the idea here is how each step can be affected by your data quality. And in general, what is data management? Is basically how we think about how data cycles through the organization, how we control how data is initially collected, and how data is assembled, aggregated, analyzed, disseminated, and in the most appropriate formats for the data to ensure the data is the data used for decision making. You see here in the graph how the data journey you see, and in each step we can have data quality issue. And let's go very quickly in each of the state. For example, you can see the key data management processes with some of the questions. Let's continue. For example, when we talk about data source, we need to know where did the data come from. Is come from a survey, for an interview, for a tally, or for what's called attendance list. So what is the beginning of your data? Where did it originate? And we don't know that, then we have a problem of data quality. As I mentioned already, data can come from different types of data sources. Let's continue. Let's continue. Yeah. So we talk about data collection before that one. Data collection. Data collection is the process when we are gathering the data. So, and data is involved obtaining the data from the original sources and transferring it into tools. And tools could be paper or can be electronically, from which we can be analyzed and reported. For example, placing information on a cyber form, on a diary, or in a sign-in sheet, on a beneficiary record. Let's continue. When we aggregate the data, you know, is that remember that when you uh, report, you only report one figure. So, but you are implementing your project in different sites, so you need to aggregate the data. So that process of aggregation, the data is can be introduce an opportunity for mistakes and errors. So we need to carefully manage that process so that that is very critical to maintain the quality of your data. Let's continue. When you talk about data analysis is the process of when you start examining, reviewing, evaluating your data sets to assess if the progress has been made towards the desired objectives of targets. So the analysis enables data users to associate variables, test underlying hypotheses and assumptions, and predict relationships, cause and effect in order to understand and evaluate their programs. So what will be the issues of data quality in here? Can you continue? Let's go to the next one. Yeah, no. Previous to that one, if I can, yeah. Here, the problem with data analysis is when, if they are missing data, for example, if the data is not complete. So then if we analyze this data with incomplete or missing data or data that had problem with validity, then we have a problem of data quality. Let's continue. What is the level of confidence that we have in these results? That is the question that we need to do when we are doing the analysis, and that is a precision question. For example, when it said what questions are not answered with the data that we have. So we are pinpointing the gaps and weaknesses the data holding. So this is a validity and relevance questions. So you see how the step in data management also can affect your data quality. Let's continue. When you talk about data reporting is basically when you compile, you have already your all your data analyzed, and then you are doing your report. And the reporting is when you provide the opportunity for project implementers and others to inform themselves of the progress, problems, difficulties, encounter, successes, and lessons learned during the implementation. So what are some of the issues on that? Again, sometimes when we report, sometimes we can claim more than we actually have been achieved. So when we do the reporting, we need to describe what we have and not overstate our results, because otherwise that is a problem. And the final step is the data use. We do all these data quality standards specifically for using the data. Because if we don't use the data, then all our work that we have done is useless. So we need to use the data. As at the beginning, I mentioned, we use data for decision making. So the data use is the ultimate goal of any monitor and evaluation effort. And it's the process of making timely data uh, decision making based on the data. Uh, to do this efficiently relevant, we need highly data information. So we need to have that information, the highly high quality data, but is provided on the timely basis. Otherwise, the decision maker are not going to use it. Okay, I think the last one, you see here what I want to see. It is a framework, how we can enhance the data quality. And you see in one column, the data management system and the data quality system, and how these two systems can be affected each other. So that's what we need to be careful, that how in each step of our data management system, we take into consideration the data quality procedure with validity, reliability, completeness, precision, timeliness, and integrity. And I think this is the last one. So I hope that we have gone through the most relevant issues of data quality, and now with the question that I put at the beginning, that we are aware why data quality is important to be included during the design of your meal system. Do we have another quiz, Kerry?
We don't have another quiz, but we
But
do
we can
have,
have questions.
yes, we do have
Okay.
some time for questions.
And yeah, anybody that have any question, put on the chat or open your mic. We can have brief questions. I still have 5 minutes probably for some questions.
Yes, and just so everyone knows, this webinar was actually originally going to be an hour and a half long, but the Cache TLL is also having a webinar in a few minutes, so we know that some of you will need to jump over. But if you can stay longer, please do so, because we can ask some questions and we can talk a little bit more about anything that you guys are wondering about. Again, this is being recorded. We will be sending out the recording and the slides. So yeah, so we did have just a clarification on reliability in the slide that said if different people collected the same type of data under similar conditions, they should obtain the similar results. And the clarification was asked also using the same tools. Is that also
Yes.
applicable?
Yes. When talk about reliability, is basically to ensure that the data is not depends on the person, but depends on the tool we are collecting. So the tool have to be the same, people have to be trained, and also everybody understood the and know how to use the tool well.
Great, thank you so much. And then we had another question about precision. So if the confidence level is 95% and the margin of error is 5%, giving us a sample size of 384, what about for large data? What about precision and the margin of error?
Well, the margin of error is independent of the size of your sample, because the margin of error is based on the margin of error. You are going to calculate the sample size. So even if 300 of his 1,000 is still 95.5%. Okay, I don't know if that respond the question.
Thanks. Yes. And if I think Wani asked that question, so if you have any clarifications, Wani, go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you want to open your mic, that's fine too. Is there any other questions that we have for our presenters today? Any other? I just want to ask, Fahim, could you share the slide again about the one with validity and reliability? I think that some people had some issues with that last quiz question that we had. So we just want to go over that one again.
Is it the
The one with the targets?
just with the targets? Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, the one I think it's on at the end of reliability.
Should be right here. This one.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. So the quiz question was a water quality measuring device consistently provides readings that are off by a small but consistent amount. While the readings are consistently wrong, they are close to each other. So we can see that that is low validity, but high reliability as indicated in that middle target right there. So I just wanted to point that out. We
Yeah.
have a hand. Let's see, Alexandre, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. There are two questions kind of together. The first one is, as a network or as Meal TLL, has an electronic tool for survey taking or data collection been endorsed? For example, I might know many offices, for example, could use Kobo Collect or other things. And the second question is specifically about Logalto, that many might be aware. Much of our data there is very disorganized. If we look for national offices all across, are we aware of any efforts to standardize these, for example, for standardized forms and that offices can use, for example, in that can be linked to Log Alto with Kobo or any other of these endorsed electronic means? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Just to respond to that one, for the network, other network in general is endorsed that Logalto is the software, okay, that it should be used, and there is now a group of PDAP that is working on technology and trying to improve any capabilities that Logalto has, and also. Look, I don't know if you are using because Logalto has the same like Kobo tool. Logalto has also an app so that you can collect data electronically using the app of Logalto. And there are a lot of efforts that now trying to any question, and I'm going to pose your question also given to that committee that has been organized with different offices with PDAP. I used to be part of that committee, but not anymore. But yeah, and that is the effort that is being done to use Logalto as the tool for the network. It doesn't mean that I know that many offices, country offices are using Kobo tool to collect data and then process in Logalto. But the idea is that you use the app that Logalto has also for electronic data collection and this. So yeah, that is what I can answer right now. I got here. I don't know if that answered your question, Alexander.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And then here it's so that Dionysia say, explain again the difference between data collection and data collection. Okay. Data collection is the activity when you collect your data for your indicators and you collect not only from just one side, you collect from different communities. Okay. But then when you talk about data collection, is like data aggregation. For example, let's say that you have the number of people trained in agricultural practices. Then you are trained people in community A, B, C, D. So you collecting for all these five, but then you have to aggregate, you have to collate the data from the five communities to have just one. For example, in one community you have 100, another 200, 500, and then you aggregate that, you have 800 people that have been trained in all those communities. I don't know if that clarifies, Dionysia, respond your question. I hope that has been. There is Shanaka, and they say, does other network have a standard data quality assessment procedure that can be applied across a wide range of donor environments? Previously, USAID has its own DQA procedures. Fahim, can you answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So yes, we do have standard data quality assessment procedures and standard procedures. We have recently developed them, and since data quality standards are similar across donor communities, you mentioned USAID has its own DQA procedures. So we have considered kind of similar data quality standards. You can't change the data quality standards across donors, but yes, we have developed that and we'll be sharing that with network. I don't know if they haven't shared carry yet, but we do have yeah, standards that we could share.
And also we have a manual on data quality assessment. So the next webinar that we are going to do organize, we are going to go through those procedures, how to do data quality standards with examples of some of the indicators you can use and how to follow, and also some examples of reports of data quality assessment that we have already done in some of our projects. So that is something that we are going to announce later on.
Yeah, we'll share the manual and the SOP
Yeah.
after the second webinar. We have one more question in the chat, Nestor,
Yeah,
from
which one?
Stanley. From Stanley, it's right above the one from Chinaka.
This our indicator target specify measuring 60% of learners for BMI for age. However, due to school and local authority requirement, we end up screening 100% of the learners. From an M&E perspective, it is acceptable to select and report on only 60% of the screened learners to match the indicator target, or should the indicator be revised to reflect the actual coverage? Okay, there are two things here. One is the target and one is the achievement. Even though that the target said 60%, but you did 100%, so your achievement is 100%. You don't have to reduce your achievement just to match the target. Because remember that you can overachieve your target or you can be below your target. So there are two things here. One is the target and one is the achievement. Okay, I don't know if that, in my case, my recommendation, if you screen 100%, so your achievement is 100%, which means that you surpass your target with 40 percentage point. Okay.
I'm gonna, Nestor, I'm gonna
And
jump in really. Oh, go ahead, Fahim.
uh,
I think you know the context more.
I think, yeah, just to add to what Nestor's mentioned, it's important to highlight on what we are measuring. Either it's the coverage for this indicator or uh, whether we are measuring the percentage of learners for high BMI or in terms. So if it's 60% coverage and we are measuring 100%, it's overachieved anyway. So it's fine to report it that way, as Nestor mentioned. But if it's the percentage of learners with high BMI or you know the way you measure it, then it's also fine to report it that way. So it depends on what you are measuring through this indicator.
Yep.
If Carrie wants.
Stanley, yeah, Stanley, I don't know if that answered your question. Because I think this is with, go ahead, Stanley, I see.
Uh, we
Stanley, can
cannot
you hear
hear.
us? Yeah, Stanley, can you hear us? Oh, I don't think we can hear you, Stanley.
Hi, Kerry. Confirm if you
Hi,
can hear.
Stanley. Yes, I can hear you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the answers. I think that was really helpful. But maybe just one last quick question is, when now completing the indicator tracking table, we've achieved 100%, but the target was 60%. How do we go about that one?
But this the achieve that you achieve. There is nothing wrong that you achieve more than the target. That's first of all. It could be that maybe we have been so conservative and we put our target 60%, but that gives you a lesson that for next another, I don't know, another cycle or another project, you know how much you can achieve, and then, but we never put 100% in the target because there is always things that happen, you know. But if you achieve 100% instead of 60%. But I want to understand a little bit more the indicator. You say BMI. I assume that we try to measure if the 60% are within the BMI correctly, or what are you measuring here? That they have low BMI, or they are within the normal BMI, or because BMI is normally it go in a range. Is that correct? So are that what you are measuring?
Yes, that's correct. So in this scenario, it's just an indicator of ensuring that the learners 60% are screened. It's not looking at improved BMI or what. It's just number of learners screened.
Oh, yeah. Then you say that your target was that you are going to screen 60% of the student, but you managed to screen 100%. So that's what you need to report. You overpassed your target. That's it.
Thank you so much, Nessa.
Okay. I don't know if there is any other question.
I think that's it for now in the chat. If anyone else has any more questions, please go ahead and put them in there. But if not, we will conclude this portion of the webinar, and we will be sending out more details about the second part of the webinar, which will be about data quality assessments. And before we go, I have a couple of links. If you're not already connected with us on HumHub, or have access to our meal blog or our newsletter, there are some links here in the chat. You can join us there, and also sign up for our newsletter because we have a lot of exciting updates and events happening this summer. So go ahead and subscribe to that. I don't see any more questions coming in.
Okay, but no, thank you very much to everybody for giving the time to participate in the webinar. Thank you, Kerry, and thank you also, Fahim, for working with us in this webinar. And hope we see you in our next webinar with data quality assessment.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.